Imagine hiding behind a crumbling stone wall. The smoke burns your eyes. You haven't slept in 3 days. The well ran dry yesterday. Your child hasn't stopped crying. Outside the gates, you can hear them. The steady rhythm of iron striking wood. The Roman battering ram. Boom, boom, boom. Then silence. The gates collapse. The screaming begins. Your city is overrun. Hours later, the fighting ends. You are still alive. Rome has won. Now what? This is the part history rarely focuses on, because surviving a Roman siege was often just the beginning of your punishment. When we think of ancient warfare, we imagine the battle, the clash of swords, the final charge, the dramatic fall of a city. And once it is over, we assume life simply continues. The survivors rebuild, the war ends, time moves on. That is not how Rome worked. For the Roman Empire, a siege was not just a military victory, it was a message. And that message had to be brutal enough that no one would dare resist next time. The moment the walls fell, everything changed. If you were a fighting-age male, your odds were not good. In many captured cities, soldiers and defenders were executed on the spot, not because Rome needed to kill them, but because Rome needed everyone else to see it. When Carthage was destroyed, tens of thousands were slaughtered or enslaved. When Jerusalem fell in 70 AD, ancient sources describe streets running with blood. And the killing was not chaotic, it was organized, systematic. Temples were stripped, homes were looted, sacred objects were paraded as trophies through Roman streets. Roman soldiers were often allowed to plunder as part of their pay. Your house was not collateral damage, it was a reward. If you survived those first hours, it was not mercy. It meant you were valuable. Survival usually meant one thing. You were property. Men, women, children, it did not matter. After major sieges, entire populations were marched away in chains. After Jerusalem fell in 70 AD, tens of thousands were sold into slavery across the empire. Some were sent to mines in Spain, some to farms in Sicily, some into gladiator schools where survival meant killing for entertainment. Imagine surviving the siege of your city only to be forced to march hundreds of miles barefoot, under guard, watching people collapse beside you. There was no appeal, no negotiation. Rome did not ask who you were. Rome asked what you were worth. And once you were sold, your old life was erased, your name, your citizenship, your history, gone. Not every city was wiped out completely. Some were spared. But spared did not mean safe. If Rome decided your city was worth keeping intact, it became something else, a warning. Heavy tribute payments were imposed, taxes increased, local leaders were replaced with men loyal to Rome. Sometimes your city would be forced to send hostages, the sons of noble families, to be raised in Rome, not as guests, as leverage. If your people rebelled again, those sons could die. Your walls might be torn down, your army disbanded, your weapons confiscated. You were allowed to live, but not to resist. And here's what made it worse. Even if Rome left you alive, you still had to live with what happened. Imagine walking through your city the day after, the smell of smoke still hanging in the air, bodies in the streets, the temple desecrated, your neighbor gone, your brother missing, your children asking where their father is. We do not have modern terms in ancient sources, but trauma leaves marks. Cities that survived Roman sieges were often never the same again. In some cases, Rome renamed them. After crushing a Jewish revolt, Jerusalem was rebuilt as Aelia Capitolina, not just conquered, rebranded. Your identity replaced, your history rewritten. You were not just defeated, you were absorbed. Some survivors were relocated entirely, moved to frontier zones, forced into new settlements on the edges of the empire. These were not thriving cities, they were buffer zones, living shields between Rome and its enemies. You became part of the empire's defense system, whether you wanted to or not. And if rebellion flared again, Rome returned, often harder than before. Rome believed brutality created stability, fear prevented rebellion, and in many cases it worked. Cities surrendered rather than risk annihilation. But there was a long-term cost. Each destroyed city left resentment, each massacre created memory, each enslaved population carried hatred across generations. And when Rome finally began to weaken, those memories mattered. Empires built on fear can dominate for centuries, but they rarely die peacefully. So what happened if you survived a Roman siege? Most likely, you were enslaved, taxed into poverty, politically stripped of power, or psychologically scarred for life. The lucky ones rebuilt. The unlucky ones disappeared in chains. Rome was incredibly good at conquering cities. It was far less interested in healing them. And if you survived a Roman siege, survival was only the beginning. If you want more stories about what life inside the Roman Empire was really like, not the glorified version, subscribe and leave a comment telling me what part of Roman life you want to explore next. Because behind every empire were people who had to survive it.